Hi everyone, Matt Thompson here from Prosperon, and welcome to a new video series where we're going to be going through the fundamentals of the SolarWinds platform. So this is for you if you have a SolarWinds observability self-hosted license, anywhere on the scale of Essentials through to Enterprise and Advanced. If you have the modular-based licensing, so maybe you're using NPM, NCM, SAM, or a mixture of them, then these features are ones that you have access to as well. They are the core features of the web console in SolarWinds. So today I want to go through a particular favorite of mine called PerfStack. Now, if that term isn't familiar to you, do not worry, because it goes by a couple of different names. Performance analysis and performance analyzer, but even if those don't sound familiar, then I'm going to show you where you have likely seen a PerfStack project on the node details page. So come with me on this journey as we go through PerfStack together. So what is it there for? Just to start off really briefly, why would you want to use it? Well, it's a tool, as I say, baked into the platform that allows you to do somewhat more complex troubleshooting. Ultimately, I like to just describe it as the tool that helps you figure out what happened when. So you're monitoring lots of different entities. You've got interfaces, volumes, nodes, applications, you name it, custom pollers as well you've got perhaps going off in there. PerfStack allows you to create a project, and we'll see this in the demo. It allows you to create a project, drag and drop. I love a bit of drag and drop, nice and simple. Drag and drop those metrics onto a project where you can kind of bring those metrics to life. It's all about visibility. You can play with time scale. You can pull through multiple metrics from multiple entities to really help paint the picture of what happened when. We'll go through that. Also, the ability to do real-time polling. There are restrictions on it to be aware of, but for the most part, you can do real-time polling through a PerfStack project. And then finally, what we're going to look at is also the ability to, if you created a great project within PerfStack, and people keep asking you, oh, I just ran the job, can you see what happened with the CPU at this time? You can create a project and just give them a shareable link and let them play around with the time frames, and it's one less channel of people asking you questions when you can empower and equip people to do that themselves. So I mentioned restrictions. Just to briefly go through before the demo, there's two veins that we generally use PerfStack for. The first one is that historical data, the drag and drop, the things over time, that kind of thing. The other side is real-time polling. So you don't have to go to your server or do a command line to your appliance or device to see things like current CPU and memory. For example, you can use PerfStack to do real-time polling. There's a plethora, there's a good word for you today, there's a plethora of options and metrics out the box that allow you to do real-time polling. Not all of them, but I'm going to show you how you know which ones are available to you. In terms of restrictions, as I'm sure you can probably appreciate with real-time polling, the demand on the polling engines is a little bit higher, just because it's processing that data constantly as it comes in. You can do real-time polling for a maximum of 10 minutes and with a maximum of 10 real-time metrics in your project. So the golden rule there is 10. 10 minutes using 10 up to 10 real-time polling metrics. Zoom out a little bit with me. In terms of the entire platform, you can have up to 30 metrics being polled with real-time polling at any given time. So if you're doing 10, you've got two colleagues looking at an issue, they're both doing 10 as well, then that is the limit that you can do, just purely because it has that additional need of resources for real-time polling. It's worth just mentioning as well, if you're familiar with the SolarWinds services that run on your polling engines, then there is one called the Cortex service. That is the one that PerfStack uses to do real-time polling. So it doesn't use the normal day-to-day service. It does use its own one for this, which is the Cortex one. So I've mentioned before, it's out of the box. There are restrictions a little bit with the real-time polling. And then, like I say, if you create a project and it's useful, go ahead and share it. And we're going to go through all of that together as well. So join me as we jump a little bit into PerfStack. So I am going to be using the demo site for this. So if we just jump on in, This is a fantastic resource, by the way. It is obviously provided by SolarWinds here, and it has every module plugged into it. So if there's one that you are wondering if it could have some value for your organization, I've used this before when looking at vMan, so Virtualization Manager. I've used this to show possible value add with a module that we didn't have at the time, because they're all plugged in here. You come up here to my dashboards, you've pretty much got everything loaded in. So I wanted to just show you first an example of where PerfStack hides, and you maybe didn't know it was PerfStack. So I've just picked a random Windows box here that's provided on the demo, and this is a page that you are likely familiar with, the node details page. If you scroll down a little bit in this center column here, you have likely seen the top CPUs by percent load, right? This is a very common one for anything that generally provides a CPU metric. You've seen this before. This is an actual example of a PerfStack project. You'll see it says PerfStack up here in the top. This is a preloaded, it's dynamic. It will change, obviously, depending on which page and which entity you load. It will dynamically change to the relevant data for that device or entity. But this is a out-of-the-box project, preloaded, ready to go. You can go ahead and click on PerfStack to open this up a bit more. But I wanted to just show you a couple of other areas that you can access this from. So if I want to get some typical default metrics for this particular node in this instance, I can come up here and just hit the Performance Analyzer option in the management widget. Now, if you don't have this option, it's best to speak to your admin to make sure that this option can be provided to you. You might not have seen everything that you just saw there in the management widget. That can be access driven by your SolarWinds administrator. But hopefully you can see the performance analyzer. And you'll see here that we've got metrics coming and loading in now. These are all related to that node that I just jumped from. So these are preloaded ones. The data in here, we're using a demo site. Some of the data might not be particularly fancy looking, but you'll see here we're pulling through by default CPU, memory, response time. So a lot of ICMP driven stuff, likely WMI or agent here for CPU. I'm pulling through alerts, so you can see here that there is one particular alert, this bottom line, this green line here. There is an alert over here for ARM. That is active, and we can see that by just hovering over the sections. I'm getting ahead of myself though, I don't want to jump too far into this, but this is how you can access default metrics for a node when you jumped off that node details page. But let's just say you're creating one from scratch. Let's pivot over to this other tab. I can access it from my dashboards under home, and there's performance analysis. So if you're playing name bingo, that was the three: PerfStack, performance analyzer, performance analysis. So when I come in here, I can create a brand new project. Now I seem to have a node already configured. You shouldn't see anything in here, so I'm just going to remove that. That'll be a quirk of the demo. So I've got a brand new project created here. I've not saved anything yet. I've just got into sort of a blank canvas. There's three main sections to this, as you likely can see. Here on the left, throw your entities in, and I quite like the fact that you get this sort of little bit of information for each one. So you can read this if you want to. Load your entities, pick the metrics, display the metrics over here on the right-hand side. So let's just go ahead. I'm just going to keep it nice and simple and go for nodes, okay? So I'm going to come in here, and hopefully there are a good number of devices in here, but my hope is it's going to let me select a device. It's thinking. Great. So here I can search for some nodes in this instance. So I'm going to add this east core, and then I think there should be an equivalent west core as well. Let's add these. You can see over here, I can go between different entity types. So you'll see here, you can go to show all, and I can do things like volumes as well. I've got applications and things like that. So you can pick your entity type. So I'm going to keep it as these two over here. Now you'll see here, I've got my two nodes. That's no surprise, but there are some great things I can do from here. So I can just choose to do things and pull node level metrics, but I can also click this option here to add other entities that are related. So you'll see when I click that East Core, it's part of some groups. It's got hardware states sensors on it. Interfaces are being monitored, and it's got some operations assigned to it as well. So I can pull in other metrics. So just a nice quick little shortcut for doing that. I can jump to the node details page if I want to, and obviously I can remove the device. So what you need to do is you need to highlight the particular entity. So in this instance, the node, and you'll see I've now been presented with metrics that are applicable to that entity that I selected. So let's go for some classics, right? We'll make this nice and accessible for everybody. We're going to do average CPU load, and we'll do average percent memory used. Now, if you're using metrics that have the same unit, so percentage in this case, you can drag and drop as many as makes sense onto one area of this canvas. Now I say where makes sense because at some point you're likely going to make it too busy, and so the whole point of it is to be able to clearly see and visualize the important metrics and relationships, patterns, whatever. So you don't want to overfill these up, but I'm just letting you know that you can drag and drop onto here. You can even do a completely different unit on the same graph as well. So if we, for example, look at total memory, that's going to be in gig, you can drag that on there, and you'll see that you'll then have percentage on here, and now you've got the other unit type on the right-hand side. Okay, so drag and drop as you see fit, but just be mindful of making sure that this data doesn't lose its value by being crowded in one particular area. You'll see that when I was dragging and dropping, so let's have a look at response time. Let's do availability. That's always a good one. You'll see I've got other areas I can drop things into. So I likely can just drop this over here. If I can't, it's going to let me know, but I'm going to keep it in its own separate section. So it's going to appear underneath, and I've got availability, again, percentage. It would have let me drop it onto here as well. But again, I'd be worried this gets too crowded. So I'm dragging and dropping things over. You'll see here, there's some great bits in here. If you are using NCM and your device is using, is being backed up, and maybe you're backing up your startup and running config using an NCM job, or somebody goes on, you've got real-time change detection enabled, you're going to be able to see those changes and when they were made as well. So as we go through this, think about where this could be useful for you. A scenario could be that somebody made a network change and then all of a sudden the availability dropped or the response time increased. That's going to help you know that likely it was because of a result of a change, right? You're going to start to see that information. Let's pull over any alerts into here as well. Again, remember this is demo data, so it's not often the best to look at in terms of something really obvious happened, but you know, it gives us an idea of what we can do. Now, I've realized I've moved alerts over. This one often takes quite a while to load. So in your environment, I wouldn't expect to see this loading icon for very long. So one thing to mention whilst that thinks about it is when I clicked over here onto my devices, my entities, you'll see that it does present at the top a collection of the metrics that have real-time polling capabilities. And it makes it nice and clear because you get this little rocket ship icon as well. Now, there will be other options that you can do. So groups, for example, don't have real-time polling metrics. If we go to interfaces, let's just click one. There's 13 available real-time polling metrics there. So it does vary between your entity type. But if you are curious to know what can I run real-time polling on, then this is the section to look at up here at the top. So if we go to something like, let's do average transmit bits per second. Okay, you'll see I've got my nice little rocket ship on 3 of these metrics. My alerts is still having an issue trying to load in, but you'll see I have this real-time polling button at the top, and I could go ahead and press that. You'll see my time frame has changed to the last 10 minutes. This will only run for 10 minutes if you remember one of the restrictions on this. But you'll see that I can see as close to real time. Obviously, there is a slight delay just as the metrics come in, they're processed, they're presented, right? So it's as close as you can get without having to go up onto the box itself. But I think this is really useful. It saves me time. I can get, you know, again, I'm going to use that word. I can use a plethora, a buffet of many different real-time polling metrics, up to 10 per project. And I can hit that button and see across interfaces and what's happening on volumes, what's happening at the node level. This is really good data that I'm able to bring in. So this is still struggling, but you will see here, look, we've got that very much more granular data coming in as it's doing close to real time. And at this point, we've still not saved anything. So I can come up here and do save. I can share it as well, which presents that shareable link. And I can give that to somebody as well. Again, I can load a project that perhaps I have needed to refer back to on occasion. So here, this presents the ones that I've been part of, but again, if it doesn't show in here, I can find my own projects or somebody else's if they're being shared. If you're an administrator, my understanding is that you can pretty much just see everybody's PerfStack projects, but if you are not an administrator, then you might need that to have that shareable link sent to you. One other feature that's worth just mentioning before we close out on PerfStack is that as well as being able to change the time frame up here at the top to anything custom through to some out of the box quick picks as they call them, you do have the ability to click and drag as well. So as well as pulling, clicking and dragging metrics onto this area, you can click and drag over an area of interest and then let go. You can then see any of if there's information available. So if you had applications that were in a down state or a warning state, you would see those applications. If you had any other information, then you'd be able to see that shown on here on the left. But even just down to being able to just zoom in on a particular section, and you can keep going as much as you feel the need to. You can zoom in on data in a particular area as well. So there's a lot of flexibility that you can do when it comes to PerfStack. Now, the other thing that's worth mentioning is, of course, if you create that project and save it, yes, you can load things, but you can also embed those projects into classical modern dashboards as well. So really worth doing. That story I wanted to just very quickly share, and I'll keep it really brief. I used PerfStack to we had a major incident one time where there was a power outage in a particular building on a campus, and we didn't know where it originated from. So we used PerfStack to drag and drop the network devices that we knew were around that building onto a new project. And then what we did was we looked at things like temperature from those switches, we looked at response time, availability, things like that. All we knew is that the devices powered off, but we didn't know where the issue started from. Using PerfStack, though, it was quite clear to see that there was a particular set of switches in a particular room that started to go offline due to increased temperature. The air conditioning unit had failed in that room, so the temperature was escalating to the point where the devices switched themselves off or entered into an error state. And because there was a lot of daisy chaining that happened with these particular switches, it meant that there was then just a cascading effect of outages across that particular building. But using PerfStack, we were able to quite clearly see what happened when, which switch, which stack first went offline, and then we were able to at least reduce it. It was the air conditioning unit that we eventually figured out in this particular room that went off, and then we were able to decide and figure out what was the root cause of the major incident. So really, really helpful, and PerfStack played a very big part in that. So I hope you've enjoyed this somewhat brief video on PerfStack. We're going to continue, as I say, this video series into the SolarWinds platform fundamentals. So stay tuned, subscribe, and watch out for the next video.